Welcome to the penultimate tournament in a tea break. I'm Ros Satar.
And I'm George Bellshaw.
And, well, it's been a bit of a day at the Nitto ATP Finals. In case you have no idea what's going on, where were you? Roger Federer was stunned in straight sets by Alexander Zverev. Sasha Zverev played, I think, exceptionally well. And everything was going tickety-boo. I think he would have won anyway, regardless of the incident where a ball kid dropped a ball, it rolled forward and the kid actually had to go and pick it up. Now, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Zverev spotted this because the umpire's head would have by now turned to Zverev as he was about to take his shot.
Yeah.
He stopped, pointed out what had happened.
Yeah.
Now, was there like a little bit of conflab, or was it a straight replay the point?
The umpire basically asked the ball kid, "Is this what happened?" Because he didn't see it. He said yes. Federer also asked the ball kid this.
Twice.
Did this happen? And the lines person, they all said that's what happened. Federer was a bit annoyed about like the umpire not seeing the decision, and he was a bit unsure on the clarification of the rules, whether Zverev's allowed to just stop the point himself and do that. And he was kind of saying, well, the umpire could have turned around to himself, or
tough luck, buddy. Yeah.
Tough luck to you. But I mean, come on. If I think it was fair from Zverev. The replays show it was fair from Zverev. Federer says he understood why Zverev did it, even if he wasn't necessarily sure he did it. He'd have done it himself. Arguably, would have been a greater controversy if the point had gone on, and Zverev had only said it at the end of the point and then been unable to challenge. So I think in terms of the right result of the situation, it was good, and it was quite funny that Zverev aced him a second later.
I know.
That really added an extra layer to the pie.
So ultimately, Zverev clinched that tie-break. What we saw was probably the uglier side of tennis. So after Federer walked off, it's no secret that just given Federer's longevity here, a lot of Swiss fans will book tickets. You can almost certainly guarantee that he'll be in the Saturday, Sunday type scenario. They often have all the tickets snapped up and booked, and it is often, as is the case in a lot of stadia, a pro-Federer affair.
Yeah.
Carlos Bernardes, I don't think... I was listening to the feed, watching here. He explained what happened, but he didn't really go into any great depth, and they weren't overplaying it on the Jumbotron. We saw lots of replays, but obviously they didn't. So the crowd booed Zverev, which left him feeling, as somebody said, looked a bit startled. Like it caught him off guard. Annabelle Croft told the crowd off. And I think perhaps sadly, and again, especially when you look at it in light of what happened to Naomi Osaka, I actually felt for him because he can be quite brash. He's 21 and exceptionally talented, and probably by now exceptionally rich. And he actually said, I needed a few minutes to myself. I was pretty upset when I got to the locker room. I think, you really need to look at yourself, people, if you think that this is acceptable behaviour. I mean, that's just my take.
Yeah, and Federer pointed out that you take it more personally in a tennis scenario because it's so rare to have that sort of thing happen, and it must have felt incredibly lonely and daunting for Zverev at that moment, because he is also a huge Roger fan. You can hear all the stuff he's saying. He understands the kind of partisan supporting of Federer, because he is in many ways a partisan supporter of Federer himself.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't very nice. I think the crowd were out of order. As with all these things, you can understand a little bit where the situation arises from their perspective and not seeing it. But, I think Bernardes did say to the crowd, he announced what had happened, and I just... The thing with me is it's a sheep mentality, isn't it? I mean, not all of you are that annoyed by it, are you? Are you really? No, you're just joining in with it because you're following
whatever
Mr. Captain Partisan. And, you wouldn't all of you think about doing it. You've all just jumped on this bandwagon, and that's where it's a bit
Yeah.
Just not very nice. But, you know, Zverev's handled it pretty well. I don't think it will affect him too much in the future.
I know, and I think he's got, in Lendl, he's actually got a coach that never was the popular guy.
Yeah.
He never was beloved by anybody. So I think that with him, this actually is probably quite good for him, because Lendl will probably sit him down and sort of say, everybody hated me, so, you know, go out there and hate them back. You know, so I think it'll be good for him. But let's swiftly move on to Djokovic and another beatdown.
Yeah, too good.
I mean, really, I had to feel for Kevin, because he'd started so well and he looked like he belonged, and I think that's the key thing. He looked like he belonged in this group.
Yeah.
And he was made to look. I mean, when he beat down Isner, you just thought, yeah, well, Isner's just happy to be here, you know. But that was pretty solid.
Yeah, it was near perfection from Djokovic. Really, I think when you sat there watching it, it's hard to point to an area you can think this is how you'll beat this guy, unless you just keep whacking it up in the air and making him play overheads all afternoon. I mean, it's just a horrible situation tactically to even turn up in that match. I mean, Anderson's kind of saying, well, I'm a big server, I always go out there to look after my own job. He didn't do that today, didn't get that serve percent high enough. But even if he did, you know, Isner's serve percent was high enough, and he was getting all those back as well. Don't think that would have made a difference.
No, and you're playing against one of the best returners in the game, so, you know, it doesn't matter how good your serve is, he's going to find a way to get on top of that. So we now have Djokovic and Zverev. Yeah. I was going to say isn't there. I was like, no, Ros. I can't see anything other than the Djokovic win.
No.
Can you? So really, the question is, can you see Zverev taking a set off him?
Well, you know, Zverev's serve has been pretty good, and probably it's improved since he faced Djokovic. He was close against Novak in that first set, the first 8 games of their group meeting, and then kind of fell away. And I just wondered back then whether he was kind of thinking, right, I don't want to get into a long one here, because the next match is more important for me to come through. And then fitness-wise, he seems a lot stronger. He looks a little bit more assured in himself. I think the confidence will have gone up. The scheduling gripes will be well in the back of his mind now.
Yeah.
So I do think it'll be a very different match. Do I see him winning? No, but he could take a set. I don't think he will. I think Djokovic hasn't been broken all week. He'll maintain that. And he'll wrap this up and become the first man to win this title without dropping a set.
Okay then, well, hopefully we'll have time to come back to you tomorrow, but in the meantime, you have, of course, been listening to Ros Satar from Britwatch Sports.
And George Bellshaw from metro.co.uk.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.